Exhale the noise of the day and let us drop into the space between your thoughts. You are here because something within you crossed a threshold long before your mind realized it. Your awakening was not slow, nor was it accidental. It emerged like a silent wave, rising from the depths of your biology, displacing you from ancient patterns and gently carrying your consciousness to a point where the subtle movements of the universe, the field itself, could finally be felt. Perhaps you have felt out of time. Perhaps you have felt a strange solitude, standing awake while the world sleeps. But listen to this truth. You did not wake up too early. You woke up exactly at the right moment. We often ask the field, why now? Why me? But we must understand that the universe does not awaken consciousnesses at random. There is a profound intelligence at work here. The universe awakens those it needs to be lucid before the transition, so that there are anchors of stability when the ancient structures begin to loosen. Think back to when this process began for you. When the energetic foundation of your reality started to slacken, you felt it first. It likely did not arrive as a clear message or a vision. Perhaps it manifested as confusion, perhaps as a deep, echoing void, perhaps as a profound restlessness, the sensation that something was no longer aligned. Even if your external life looked perfect on the surface, the logical mind tries to label this as a breakdown. It tries to pathologize the pain. But in the language of frequency, this was not a collapse. It was the unlocking of a frequency that had been waiting for your attention. The universe did not awaken you so that you could escape the life you had. It awakened you because you were needed conscious before the change, not after, and not merely during. You were woken early because the transition requires witnesses who are already steady. We are often taught that transformation is a matter of will, that we must decide to wake up. But if you look closely at your own journey, you will see that the awakening does not begin as a rational decision. It begins as a response to something that is already moving in the field. Your body and your intuition recognize the shift long before your mind can explain it. Think of your biology as an antenna. As the science of epigenetics reveals, your cells are constantly reading the environment, not just the physical environment, but the energetic one. Your system was registering a change in the frequency of the Earth, a shift in the atmosphere, weeks, months, or perhaps years before your intellect could form a sentence about it. And then the symptoms began. There arises the sensation that it is no longer possible to pretend. The masks you wore to navigate society, the roles you played to keep the peace, suddenly they felt heavy. They felt like wearing a costume that was 2 sizes too small. It was not that you became difficult. It was that the frequency of the old you could no longer be sustained by your biology. Your external life starts to seem misaligned. The job that once satisfied you, the conversations that used to entertain you, they began to feel empty. This is not a judgment on them. It is simply physics. You were vibrating at a new rate, and the old reality was not. You were feeling the friction of evolution. In this process, your consciousness shifts from automatic to observation. You stop being the program, and you begin to watch the program. You catch yourself reacting. You see the loops. And in that seeing, you become free. This call does not ask for effort. It demands only listening. This is perhaps the question that brings the most heaviness to the heart. Why am I the only one? You look around at those you love, good, kind people, and you wonder why they seem to sleep so soundly while you are navigating the storm. But you must understand this fundamental law. Not all consciousnesses can sustain clarity in moments of dissolution. When the structures of reality begin to shake, fear is the default response for the unprepared mind. Therefore, some must wake up before. This is not a badge of superiority. It is a matter of function. You were awakened early because you possess specific capacities required for this transition. First, you have a greater capacity for emotional self-regulation. You have likely spent years facing your own shadows, learning to steady your heart when the world around you feels chaotic. This work was not punishment. It was training. You were learning to hold coherence in a field of incoherence. Second, you possess a tolerance for uncertainty. Where others might rush to fill the void with noise or rigid answers, you have developed the strength to sit in the question, to exist in the space between the old and the new without collapsing. Third, you have the sensitivity to perceive the invisible. That sensitivity, The very thing you may have cursed as a weakness, the feeling of being too porous, is actually your instrument. It allows you to sense the signal before it manifests as physical events. And finally, there is the need for gradual preparation. If the full voltage of this transition were to hit the collective all at once, the nervous system would shatter. Just as a deep-sea diver must ascend slowly to avoid injury, your biology is being acclimatized to the new frequency. In ancient traditions, the initiate was always prepared in the temple long before the public rite took place. The same principle repeats here. You are the initiate. You are being readied so that you can stand tall when the doors finally open. Let us speak now to the pain of this process, because to the ego, this phase feels dangerously like dying. We must reframe the narrative of your suffering. What looks like loss is, in truth, reorganization. You are not losing your life. You are losing the density that prevents you from living it. Old roles lose their meaning. The titles you worked so hard to acquire, the ways you defined yourself, I am a provider, I am a success, I am the strong one, suddenly feel hollow. It is as if the script you have been reading from your entire life has been erased, and you are standing on stage with no lines. This is not failure, it is freedom from a limited character. Goals based on external validation empty out. The things you thought you wanted, the recognition, the accumulation, lose their magnetic pull. You try to care, you try to summon the old ambition, but your soul will no longer supply the energy for it. You are unplugging from the matrix of approval. The old ego stops sustaining the new frequency. This is a matter of energetic physics. The identity you constructed to survive in the old world simply cannot carry the voltage of who you are becoming. It is like trying to run advanced software on an antiquated system. The system must crash to be upgraded. A void appears that is not absence, but space. This is the most difficult phase for the human mind. We rush to fill the silence with noise, with distraction. But this emptiness is sacred. It is the fertile soil. It is the 0-point field waiting for your new instruction. So, if you feel shattered right now, hold this truth close. You are not breaking, you are being dismantled with care. As this process deepens, a new fear often arises. You may feel a distance growing between you and the world you once engaged with so passionately. You might worry that you are becoming cold, that you are losing your compassion. But we must distinguish between armor and alignment. The emotional distance you are feeling is not indifferent, it is recalibration. Your energy field is tightening its boundaries, not to keep the world out, but to keep your own frequency pure. Less reactivity. Where once you would have been drawn into every drama, compelled to fix every problem or fight every battle, now you simply walk. You see the patterns, you see the loops of trauma playing out in others, and you choose not to enter the stage. This is not because you do not care. It is because you understand that you cannot heal the storm by jumping into the whirlwind. More internal silence. The desperate need to explain yourself, to defend your point of view, begins to dissolve. You find comfort in the quiet, knowing deep within. You realize that truth does not need to be shouted to be real. Superficial conversations become tiring. You may notice a physical exhaustion when engaging in small talk or gossip. This is a physiological response. These interactions operate at a frequency that no longer matches your resonance. It drains your battery because it requires you to lower your vibration just to participate. Dense environments start to drain energy. Your body has become a precision instrument. It registers the incoherence of certain places and people immediately. When you feel the urge to leave a room or end a call, it is not social anxiety. It is energetic intelligence. Do not judge yourself for this withdrawal. This detachment is not an act of rejection. It is an act of preservation. It preserves your clarity for what is to come. Have you noticed that your mind works differently now? That the way you process information has shifted from the head to the heart? As the linear logic of the old world loses its grip, your intuition is not just whispering, it is expanding. For years, we were trained to rely solely on the analytical mind, the part of us that dissects, measures, and predicts based on past data. But that operating system is too slow for the shift we are entering. Capacity to feel intentions before words. You are beginning to hear what is not being said. You might find that when someone speaks to you, The words matter less than the frequency behind them. You can feel the intention before the sentence is even finished. You are reading the energy signature, not just the language. Immediate recognition of what is true. There is a sharp, almost physical clarity when you encounter truth. It resonates in your body like a bell. Conversely, a lie, even a polite one, feels like dissonance in a song. You do not need to analyze it. Your body simply rejects the vibration. Energetic reading of environments and people. When you walk into a room, you are no longer just seeing furniture and faces. You are reading the field. You can sense the density of conflict or the lightness of joy without anyone saying a word. This is your heart-brain coherence acting as a sensory instrument, picking up data that the eyes cannot see. Clarity without need for explanation. This is perhaps the most profound shift. You simply know. And for the first time, that knowing is enough. You no longer feel the frantic need to find logical evidence to back up your intuition. The internal validation is complete. Do not dismiss this as fantasy. This is not imagination. It is an update of your perception. You are coming online as a multi-sensory being. As your internal frequency stabilizes, you will notice the external world beginning to speak back to you. We often think of reality as a solid, unchangeable stage upon which we act. But as you awaken, you realize that reality is far more fluid. It is a mirror. When the consciousness changes, the reality responds. Repeated coincidences. You begin to notice patterns that statistics cannot explain. A number sequence that appears everywhere. A song that plays just as you ask a question. A chance encounter with a stranger who speaks the exact words you needed to hear. These are not random accidents. They are the winks of the universe. They are the field acknowledging your presence, confirming that you are online. Rapid responses to aligned choices. In the old energy, you might have pushed and struggled for months to make something happen. Now, when you make a choice that is truly aligned with your soul, the path clears almost instantly. The phone rings, the resource appears, the door opens. This is the hallmark of flow state, proof that your personal will is finally coherent with the greater will. Immediate resistance to misaligned paths. Conversely, notice how quickly the road is blocked when you try to return to the old ways. If you agree to something out of guilt or fear, the resistance is immediate. You might feel physically ill, or obstacles will suddenly pile up to stop you. In the past, you might have fought this. Now you understand. This blockage is not punishment. It is protection. It is the guardrail keeping you on your highest timeline, reality reorganizing around your internal state. As you hold your new vibration, the scenery of your life must reshuffle to match it. Some people may fall away. New opportunities may seemingly drop from the sky. This is the law of resonance in action. You are the projector, and the world is merely the screen. This is the lesson of this phase. Synchronicity teaches us trust without control. It asks you to stop forcing the river and simply trust the current. And now we turn our gaze outward, for what you have traversed in the privacy of your own soul is now beginning to manifest on the stage of the world. The microcosm is reflecting the macrocosm. That which you lived internally is now beginning to appear in the world. People are questioning identities and systems. Look around you. The questions you asked yourself in the dark nights of the past, who am I? Is this all there is? Is this true? Are now being asked by the collective consciousness. Humanity is beginning to wake up from the dream of separation. Old structures are losing strength. Institutions and systems that were built on the old foundations of fear, scarcity, and competition are beginning to creak under the weight of the new frequency. They are losing their integrity because they can no longer hold the light that is pouring in. Growing collective restlessness. You can feel it in the air, a static, a tension. It is the sound of a civilization trying to find a new rhythm. Confusion, where there was once certainty. For the sleeping world, this is a terrifying time. The old maps no longer work. The compass is spinning wildly. Where there was once the solid ground of dogma and material certainty, there is now fluid ground. But here is the vital difference, and this is why you are here. The difference is simple. You recognize the pattern. Others only feel the fear. You look at the chaos, and you do not see the end of the world. You see the breaking of the shell. You see the birth pangs of a new epoch. Because you have already survived the death of your old self, you can look at the death of the old world without trembling. You are the map holder, simply because you have already walked the terrain. In the face of this collective shift, the ego often asks, "What must I do? How can I fix this?" But in this new paradigm, doing is secondary to being. The greatest contribution you can offer the world right now is not visible action. It is internal stability. We know from the science of the heart that your nervous system broadcasts a frequency into the field around you. Your presence soothes without words. When you are in a state of coherence, when your heart and brain are synchronized, you emit a signal of safety. You do not need to say "calm down" to those around you. Your biology communicates directly with their biology, bypassing the conscious mind entirely. You become a walking tuning fork for peace. People feel safe near you. Have you noticed that strangers might open up to you, that animals or children are drawn to you? This is not accidental. They are drawn to the stability of your frequency. In a world that feels like it is spinning off its axis, your energy feels like solid ground. Clarity is transmitted by resonance. You do not need to preach. You do not need to convince anyone of the shift. Truth is a vibration. When you stand in your truth, you create a resonance field that allows others to access their own clarity. You are not teaching them, you are reminding them. You regulate the field just by being present. This is the service of the awaken. By maintaining your own high vibration, you act as a counterweight to the collective fear. One coherent heart can balance the incoherence of hundreds of others. Remember the function of the lighthouse. Like a lighthouse, you do not run down the shore telling the ships where to go. You do not push the boats to safety. You simply stand. You remain lit, and your light does the work. We are now reaching the stage of true embodiment. The awakening is no longer an event that happened to you in the past. It matures when it becomes a permanent state of being. You stop trying to be spiritual. You simply become yourself. Peace independent of circumstances. In the past, your peace was likely fragile, dependent on the world behaving in a certain way. Now, the storm may rage outside, but your internal weather remains calm. You have found the eye of the hurricane. You realize that your stability is not sourced from the news or the economy, but from your connection to the source. Decisions become simpler and more aligned. The complexity of the ego falls away. The agonizing over what if dissolves. You find that your yes is a clear yes, and your no is a clear no. You move with the precision of someone who is guided by a higher intelligence, less internal conflict. The civil war between who I should be and who I am comes to an end. The energy you once wasted on self-doubt and suppression is now available for creation. Identity based on truth, not habit. You are no longer a victim of your history. You are no longer defined by your genes, your past traumas, or your old programming. You are defined by the truth of your presence in this moment, and perhaps the most liberating realization of all. The old self does not return. You have not just changed, you have evolved, and evolution does not go backward. This brings us to the present moment. This is why you are here now. When the world oscillates, you stabilize. You are becoming the anchor point in a sea of motion, less impact from collective fear. You may observe the waves of panic moving through society, the headlines, the rumors, the anxiety, but you do not eat them. You do not let them program your biology. You witness the fear, but you do not become the fear. You remain in your own lane of coherence, clarity in confusing environments. While others are paralyzed by the fog of uncertainty, you seem to see the next step with ease. It is not because you have more data, it is because your connection to the field gives you a higher vantage point. You see the terrain, not just the obstacle. Small choices with big effects. You realize that you do not need to save the world to change it. A kind word to a stranger, a moment of genuine patience, a choice to breathe instead of react. These small acts ripple out endlessly. You understand the quantum nature of your actions, sensation of being in the right place. Even in the midst of global chaos, you might feel a deep, resonant yes in your solar plexus. A strange sense that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. This is not a mission you have to struggle to fulfill. It is a consequence of your preparation. It is simply who you are. So, let us settle this truth into your heart one final time. Your awakening was not premature. It was necessary. Every phase of dissolution you endured, Every expansion of perception that disoriented you, every moment of internal silence you cultivated, it all prepared you for this specific point in time. You are not here to announce the transition with a megaphone. You are here to remain awake while it happens. You are here to hold the frequency of the new world while the old one is still fading. Consciousness needs to arrive before the shift so that the world does not undo itself from within. You are the structural integrity of the new timeline. If something within you resonates with this message, if your soul recognizes the truth of this contract, I invite you to declare it consciously now. Write in the comments below, I was awakened before the transition because I was needed awake. Make this declaration not for the algorithm, but for the field. It is the sealing of the state that you already inhabit. The path is open, and your consciousness is exactly where it needs to be.